This is Gears of War 4. We're on Xbox Series X, diving into the FPS boost for the game. So this is one of those situations where you actually have to go into the My Games and Apps and manually turn this on in order to have it take effect. Now, this does actually provide a bit of a downgrade in that regard. So you're sacrificing resolution in order to get the higher frame rate. So you get 60 FPS, but it runs at 1080 across the experience. And that's like a dynamic, but it's native 1080. I mean, the Xbox One base console was hitting that. Anyways, you also get HDR support, and it's, it's kind of a good way to experience the game fluidity-wise, because it is a shooter, and, that's kind of the best way to play a shooter, like 60 FPS, but, yeah, I don't know. I think in this situation, I would actually keep the frame rate for the more cinematic sort of experience when it comes to campaign. Because for context, already, you get that 4K resolution, and you get, it's 4K 30 for campaign, and 4K 60 for multiplayer when you don't have the FPS boost applied. So, the resolution drop here is really, really quite brutal, honestly. It's a significant dip in resolution quality, but if you want that frame rate, this is the way to kind of go. I just think it would be... I'm just disappointed they couldn't get, both, right? Without having to sacrifice resolution on this one. It just seems, considering this is like a big primary first-party, exclusive title, that you would put... you would actually take the time to go and update this one, and hopefully that does happen someday, because I think this should be able to do 4K 60 on the new hardware. I don't really see the excuse why there isn't. I know that you didn't have to do any, developer work in order to be able to do this, but it's just, yeah, it's interesting. But again, if you want to enjoy 60 FPS for the campaign, flop on that FPS boost, restart the game if you had it running, and you're basically good to go. That's generally the gist of it. So that kind of covers the details. Obviously, you get 60 FPS in the multiplayer too. Kind of expected, but it's going to look a lot rougher multiplayer wise. And we will show off a bit of the multiplayer so that you can see in action as well, because we're showing off the full course of the game. There is also horde mode, so if you want to do wave-based survival, it takes the multiplayer maps and it does that. But we're going to get into a bit of a shootout here in a sec once we say hello to a bit of an old friend.
Welcome home, James.
How'd you know we were here?
And into the action, because we don't need to go over that cutscene. Anyways, time to shoot things, battle stuff, you know how it goes. Story-wise, we're following kind of, Marcus Phoenix's kid and his group of friends. We've got Kate, we've got Del. Well, Del's right here. And, of course, that's Marcus. And we're running into familiar faces throughout the course of the story, as we battle both the newest iteration of the COG, as we are kind of stranded individuals, or, we're outcasts, as to say. And, wow, that was pretty aggressive with the, damn. I was not expecting that. So then you got, these are COG forces, and then there's the reemergence of, basically the Locusts, but in a new form called the Swarm. So they're the exact same, but they have spiky block things on them. So that's kind of interesting. So basically, not a whole lot has changed. You're still fighting, things are falling apart, but you get a little bit of a different look at society now that things have kind of rebounded a little bit. Not to the fullest extent, but they definitely are way better than they were during the Locust Wars. That's for sure. E-Day and past that. But of course, knowing Gears, things never tend to go well, and everything falls apart, and you're kind of picking up the pieces, and that's kind of the gist of the experience when you're wondering about the story. It actually is a really well done experience. It's a very well done game. I think it's quite a lot of fun. Where did his gun go? I think it has a pretty well done story, neat continuation of characters. I think it has some fun with the the core elements of the Gears of War franchise. It plays it safe, you know, which some people might complain about. But I definitely appreciated having something that felt like an evolution on Gears and got the things right before going off and doing something a little bit more wildly different, which this franchise did with Gears 5. And while I'm not super crazy about some of the decisions in Gears 5 character-wise, but this one, felt really on par. It definitely brought back a lot of familiar faces. It had just the right bit of nostalgia and change in the world to kind of get me going and being like, awesome. And like I said, the multiplayer, pretty cool in this one. I definitely played a lot of it because I have like well over 1,000 hours on this one's multiplayer, and I would not be showing us in my single player performance right now, but I definitely have the time put into this one. I even reviewed it ahead of launch because I was part of the review program for it, and that was kind of exciting at the time. And it was really cool because I got to play Gears, obviously early, and I think this was the first one I reviewed. No, I did Ultimate Edition beforehand, but this is the first new Gears that I had, kind of ended up reviewing when it came to actual, kind of jumping in there and playing the game. Obviously, loading's a little bit faster too. It all seems to run beautifully fine. I mean, like the game was designed on like PC-wise to actually provide higher frame rates and stuff. So it's not too wild to think that this one would be running as well as it does. Wow, this place is kitted. Of course, got the classic chainsaw. But yeah, pretty cool story thing. Neat destruction too in the environment. They really the Coalition is just, they are masters of pushing what Unreal Engine can do, because this game really does look quite lovely, in the presentation, the character movement, the style of it. It really just absolutely pushes the original the Xbox One console to its limit here. So I guess it's kind of cool to see the effect of that. It's just such a resolution sacrifice to do this mode. But the choice is up to you, really. You can just turn it on, and you can enjoy it in that way, or you can just leave it as is, whatever your choice is. You've got the options. Do you want the resolution with a little bit of lower frame rate? Do you want the, the frame rates and, slightly lower frame rate, higher resolution? You know the gist of it, right? Lower resolution, higher frame rate. Those are the choices. I hope someday we don't have to make a choice between the two. In another upgraded console, I hope this one does get a revisit, because I think it does definitely deserve the 4K 60. I believe this one should be able to achieve it. I get that they're always busy working on other things, but it would be really nice if they could just set aside a couple devs or something just to get this one, running at 4K 60 on the Series X. I really don't think it should be, out of the question.
Where the hell is she going?
Quite honestly. And with that, we're going to pop over to the multiplayer here so that you can see that in action. It is very funny watching them just destroy Marcus's, or what used to be the Anya. Well, I think it's the Stroud estate, right? Is where they actually are, which is kind of funny. That was a bit of a sad part of the story. I kind of wonder why they did that sort of skip. I guess it was to add a little bit of context and why there was distance between the two. It's definitely, interesting direction for things to head. But yeah, let's pop over to that multiplayer. This is the multiplayer portion of the game, which again has quite a severe resolution downgrade. That's for sure. But I thought we'd just jump into some social matchmaking to show off a bit of the multiplayer in action. If you're coming off of Gears 5, it's probably going to look very similar, because a lot of these maps were ported into Gears 5 in order to increase the map quantity of the game, which makes perfect sense. The maps still look great, they still play well. No reason not to upgrade them. But yeah, it definitely plays a little bit different in comparison to Gears 5 gameplay, if you've been wondering about this. This is like quick, but it's also you know, significantly slower in comparison to what that one offers mechanics-wise, because that is a very, very fast-paced game. Like, this one was a lot quicker in comparison to, like, other older Gears games, but Gears 5 is, like, on another level for speed, movement, and complexity in regards to the multiplayer competitive action. It really just, like, increased the gears on it. It went up a gear, or is it down a gear? Whatever the case is, you know. It went to the extreme. And, yeah, I mean, that works for it. It's a different kind of Gears game, which is cool. I quite like this one. I think it offered quite a bit. I worked very hard for a very long time to kind of keep up with the content drops. There was a lot of very, very aggressive crate drops and stuff, but they cleaned it up quite well after the first, I think, month or two. And then from there, I actually liked the system of how you were able to get things in the boxes and stuff. I felt it was relatively fair for gathering things. Whatever the case is, nowadays you can just jump on here and actually have like a pretty good time with the game. It's, you know, it's running quite well. It's just, you know, if you're playing this game on the Series X, if you're doing the multiplayer, turn off the FPS boost, because you're just gonna have a much easier time, you know, experiencing what this multiplayer has to offer. Because I think the resolution does a lot. You know, just for how you kind of move and see things in the game. Is Deathmatch execution? No, it's not. Okay. Sorry, I was just wondering if the execution rules are not in Deathmatch. I don't really play Deathmatch. I usually do Escalation in this one, or I don't think this one had Blitz back. I know it was Escalation was like our big mode, and then there was also King of the Hill was the other one. I believe, I'm just trying to recall what we mostly played. I always had a friend I would play this with. We spent countless hours Gearsing the Wars. It was a lot of fun, but we didn't really ever play any of the deathmatch type things, because it wasn't really our cup of tea, as one might say, but yeah, definitely a fun title. Is this guy dead? Oh, free kill, I'll take that. Yeah, definitely a very hardcore Gears game, very competitive. And like I said, there's, you know, the horde mode if you want to go in and you want to do waves of survival. There was improved mechanics in regards to the traps and stuff and the fortifications and defenses you could use when you're facing off against whatever sort of threats were there, boss fights. Like, the horde mode got a lot of love in this one, like a lot of love. A lot of achievements too are based around the horde mode and stuff like that. I feel bad because, I mean, quick play and these guys are not, like, I haven't played in a very long time this particular Gears, but they're definitely not up to my quality level, that's for sure. Well, that one got me. Yeah, but I joined it late and I'm just kind of wrecking house, as to say, which I guess is a compliment to myself, but yeah, no, I just kind of feel bad for them. But yeah, you lose quite a bit of technical or visual detail within the environment in regards to like fidelity and stuff like that. It's still very impressive for what it is, you know, kind of that base Xbox One release for this game. Really impressive, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, I don't feel that's worth losing that resolution quality in this one. But if you really need that fluidity for your campaign, you now have that option. So I guess that's good. I mean, I don't have complaints about having a choice, right? I just really wish they would have been able to push it further. At least I had thought that they were able to push it further, and then I went on here and I was like, oh no, that's disappointing. But definitely a worthwhile series if you've never played Gears of War. I gotta say that too. I mean, Gears 4 here, I thought really was a neat starting point. Like, if you're coming in fresh to the series and you don't want to play all of them, you know, this is a fine one to start with, I guess, because it's a bit of a soft refresh for the franchise. But I think if you're wanting a long-term thing, you got to work from the beginning, and you can really experience the full scope of what, you know, this great, gory, intense franchise has to offer. But that is the Gears of War with the FPS boost enabled. Pretty interesting.